The Starship Elysium floated silently in the vast expanse of space, its sleek metallic body reflecting the faint light of a distant sun. Inside, the crew buzzed with anticipation. For months, they had traveled across galaxies on a mission that could change history. First contact with an alien species. The Veilith, as they were called, had finally agreed to meet humanity face to face. It was a moment everyone aboard the ship had dreamed of, but no one truly knew what to expect. Diplomat Marcus Hale stood at the center of the observation deck, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He wore a crisp navy blue suit, chosen carefully for this occasion. First impressions matter, he muttered under his breath, repeating the mantra he'd told himself countless times since being assigned to lead the mission. Beside him, Dr. Leela Quinn adjusted her glasses, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors displaying data about the approaching Veilith vessel. She was calm, methodical, and far more prepared than Marcus felt. "Relax, Marcus," she said, glancing at him with a reassuring smile. "They're probably just as nervous as we are." Marcus nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. How could anyone be sure? Humans knew almost nothing about the Veilith, except that they communicated through colors and vibrations instead of words. Their technology was advanced, their society ancient, and their motivations unclear. What if they didn't want peace? What if they saw humanity as insignificant or even dangerous? Before Marcus could spiral further into worry, the intercom crackled to life. "Veilith delegation entering docking bay," announced Captain Elena Torres from the bridge. "All personnel report to reception area immediately." Marcus straightened his tie one last time before heading toward the designated meeting point. As he walked, he passed members of the crew exchanging excited whispers. Some clutched tablets filled with notes. Others held gifts meant to symbolize goodwill. A painting, a musical instrument, even a small potted plant. Everyone wanted to make a good impression. When Marcus arrived at the reception area, he found it transformed into a welcoming zone. Soft lighting illuminated the room, and holographic displays showcased Earth's greatest achievements: art, science, architecture, and nature. In the corner, a string quartet played soothing melodies designed to evoke warmth and harmony. Everything had been meticulously planned to convey humanity's best qualities. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The airlock hissed open, and the Veilith entered. Marcus froze. They were unlike anything he'd imagined, tall and ethereal. Their bodies shimmered with iridescent hues that shifted constantly, like liquid rainbows trapped in glass. Their forms were fluid, almost serpentine, yet unmistakably intelligent. Around their torsos, necks, and limbs, intricate crystalline structures glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with their movements. To Marcus, they looked otherworldly, not frightening, but awe-inspiring. Dr. Quinn stepped forward first, bowing slightly as a gesture of respect. "Welcome to the Elysium," she said, her voice steady. Though the Veilith couldn't understand spoken language, her tone carried sincerity. One of them, their leader, presumably, responded by shifting its colors into a swirling pattern of blues and greens. According to Dr. Quinn's research, this likely indicated curiosity or openness. Encouraged, Marcus stepped forward next. "On behalf of Earth, I extend our deepest gratitude for your willingness to meet us," he began, speaking slowly and clearly despite knowing the Veilith wouldn't comprehend his words. Instead, he focused on conveying emotion through his posture and facial expressions. He smiled warmly, hoping it would translate as friendliness rather than awkwardness. But then something unexpected happened. The Veilith leader tilted its head, studying Marcus intently. Its crystalline adornments flared brightly, casting prismatic reflections across the walls. Without warning, it reached out, one graceful, glowing appendage extending toward Marcus's chest. For a split second, panic flashed through Marcus's mind. Was this an attack? A test? Before he could react, the appendage stopped inches away from him. The Veilith seemed to examine his suit, particularly the buttons and insignia adorning it. Then, to everyone's astonishment, it mimicked the action, adjusting one of its own crystals, as if trying to replicate the effect. Realization dawned on Dr. Quinn. "Oh," she whispered, turning pale. "I think they thought your suit was part of you." "What?" Marcus asked, confused. "The crystals. They're not decorations," she explained quickly. "They're sensory organs. By touching your clothes, they might have assumed you were altering yours too." Marcus blinked, processing the implications. If the Valeth believed clothing was tied to identity or function, then his formal attire might have sent entirely the wrong message. Suddenly, all those carefully chosen suits and polished shoes seemed laughably inadequate and potentially offensive. As the realization sank in, Marcus swallowed hard. This wasn't going to be as simple as shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. First contact was already proving to be more complicated and more fascinating than anyone had anticipated. The initial awkwardness lingered in the air like static electricity. Marcus Hale stood frozen, unsure of how to proceed after realizing his formal suit might have sent the wrong message to the Valeth. The alien delegation continued to study him and the rest of the human crew, their crystalline sensory organs glowing softly as they processed what they saw. Dr. Layla Quinn stepped forward again, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to Marcus's growing unease. "We need to clarify things," she whispered urgently to Marcus. "If they think our clothing is functional, we should adjust our approach." Marcus nodded, though his mind raced with questions. How could he explain that humanity's outfits were merely decorative? And more importantly, how could he fix this without offending them further? Dr. Quinn turned her attention back to the Valeth leader. Slowly, she raised her hands, palms open, a universal gesture of peace, and began speaking in short, deliberate sentences. Though the Valeth couldn't understand her words, her tone was gentle and reassuring. She pointed to her own clothes, then mind removing an imaginary layer, hoping to demonstrate that human attire wasn't part of their bodies. To everyone's relief, the Valeth responded. Their colors shifted into soothing shades of green and gold, indicating curiosity rather than hostility. One of the aliens stepped closer to Dr. Quinn, its fluid body rippling gracefully. It extended a glowing appendage toward her lab coat, but stopped just short, as if seeking permission. Dr. Quinn smiled and nodded. "It's okay," she said softly, even though she knew the Valeth couldn't understand. Carefully, the alien touched the fabric of her coat, running its appendage along the material. Its colors flickered rapidly, suggesting it was analyzing the texture and composition. Encouraged by this interaction, Marcus decided to take a risk. He unbuttoned his suit jacket slightly, exposing the plain shirt underneath. Then, with exaggerated slowness, he removed the jacket entirely and held it up for the Valeth to see. The room fell silent as all eyes, human and alien alike, focused on him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the Valeth emitted a series of pulsating lights, accompanied by a low hum. To Marcus's surprise, the other members of the delegation joined in, creating a symphony of colors and vibrations that filled the room. Dr. Quinn's face lit up with excitement. "They're responding," she exclaimed. "I think they're trying to communicate." Marcus felt a spark of hope. Maybe this misunderstanding wouldn't derail the mission after all. Emboldened, he handed the jacket to the nearest Valeth, who accepted it cautiously. The alien examined the garment closely, its crystalline structures shimmering as it processed the information. After a few moments, it draped the jacket over its own body, mimicking how Marcus had worn it earlier. A ripple of amusement spread through the human crew. Someone stifled a laugh, while another crew member whispered, "Looks like we got a fashion enthusiast." But it wasn't just about humor, it was progress. Seeing the Valeth experiment with human clothing seemed to break down some invisible barrier between the two species. Encouraged by this breakthrough, Marcus signaled for the rest of the crew to join in. They brought out various items from the ship's wardrobe. Scarves, hats, belts, and even a brightly patterned sari someone had brought as a gift. One particularly curious Valeth named Zyron became especially intrigued. With its vibrant hues and playful energy, Zarin eagerly tried on different garments, combining them in ways no human would ever imagine. At one point, Zarin wore 3 mismatched hats stacked on top of each other, eliciting genuine laughter from both sides. For the first time since the meeting began, the atmosphere felt lighter, warmer. As the impromptu fashion show continued, Dr. Quinn seized the opportunity to deepen the connection. Using holographic projections, she displayed images of Earth's diverse cultures and clothing traditions. From traditional Japanese kimonos to Scottish kilts, each image sparked new interest among the Vailith. They responded by projecting their own visuals, swirling patterns of light that represented their history, art, and values. Despite the language barrier, communication flourished. Through gestures, visuals, and shared experiences, humans and Vailith found common ground. Marcus marveled at how quickly fear and uncertainty gave way to curiosity and camaraderie. Even Captain Elena Torres, who had initially been skeptical about the mission, couldn't hide her smile as she watched the exchange unfold. However, not everything went smoothly. When one crew member accidentally spilled a cup of coffee near the Vailith delegation, panic briefly erupted. The dark liquid splashed onto one of their crystalline adornments, causing its colors to dim momentarily. The affected Vailith emitted a sharp burst of red light, startling everyone nearby. "It's okay," Dr. Quinn shouted, rushing to help. "We didn't mean to harm you." Thankfully, the situation resolved quickly. Another Vailith used a small device to clean the crystal, restoring its glow. Once assured there was no lasting damage, the group returned to their interactions, albeit with renewed caution. By the end of the session, both humans and Vailith seemed more relaxed. As the aliens prepared to leave the reception area, Zarin paused and offered Marcus a wide grin, or at least what passed for a grin among the Vailith. Its colors shifted into bright, cheerful yellows and oranges, leaving Marcus with a sense of optimism. When the airlock sealed behind the departing delegation, the human crew erupted into applause. For the first time, Marcus allowed himself to believe that true understanding between species was possible. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. There were still countless differences to navigate and challenges to overcome. The days following the initial meeting with the Vailith were filled with cautious optimism. Both species seemed eager to learn more about each other, and progress was being made, albeit slowly. Marcus Hale spent hours reviewing recordings of their interactions, trying to decipher patterns in the Vailith's use of color and vibration. Dr. Layla Quinn worked tirelessly alongside him, cross-referencing their behaviors with data collected from previous observations. The crew of the Elysium had begun referring to this collaboration as Operation Spectrum, a nod to the vibrant hues that dominated Vailith communication. Despite these efforts, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Not everyone aboard the ship shared Marcus's enthusiasm for diplomacy. Some crew members viewed the Vailith with suspicion, convinced that their peaceful demeanor masked ulterior motives. Chief Engineer Ryland Cole, in particular, voiced his concerns during daily briefings. "We're giving them too much access," he argued one morning, pacing back and forth in the conference room. "They've been scanning our systems since they arrived. What if they're gathering intel instead of building trust?" Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. He understood Cole's frustration, but couldn't afford to let paranoia derail the mission. "Their scans are non-invasive," he countered. Dr. Quinn confirmed it. "Besides, we need to show them we're willing to cooperate if we want this alliance to succeed." Cole crossed his arms, clearly unconvinced. "And what happens when they decide cooperation isn't enough? You're putting all of us at risk." Before the argument could escalate, Captain Elena Torres intervened. "Enough," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "We agreed on transparency from the start. If we shut them out now, we'll undo everything we've worked for." Reluctantly, Cole backed down, though his scowl suggested he wasn't done voicing his objections. Marcus knew he'd have to address these doubts eventually, but not today. Today, they had another demonstration planned, one designed to showcase Earth's technological advancements. The demonstration took place in the engineering bay, where holographic displays highlighted humanity's achievements in space exploration, energy production, and medicine. Members of the Vailith delegation watched intently, their crystalline adornments glowing softly as they absorbed the information. Zirin, the most curious of the group, hovered near the front, occasionally emitting bursts of light that seemed to indicate excitement or approval. Everything was going smoothly until an unexpected glitch occurred. A gravity simulator, a key component of the presentation, malfunctioned, causing several pieces of equipment to float uncontrollably toward the ceiling. Before anyone could react, one of the floating objects crashed into a nearby console, sending sparks flying across the room. Panic rippled through the crowd. The Vailith reacted immediately, their colors shifting violently from calm blues and greens to harsh reds and blacks. The sudden change startled the human crew, who struggled to regain control of the situation. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the gravity field while security personnel moved to shield the delegation. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded, shouting over the chaos. "Is anyone hurt?" "No injuries reported," Dr. Quinn replied, her voice tight with worry. "But look at their colors. They're distressed." Indeed, the Vailith's reactions grew increasingly erratic. Several members emitted high-pitched hums that reverberated through the room, making it difficult for the humans to focus. One particularly agitated individual surged forward, its appendages flaring brightly as if preparing to strike. "Stand down," Captain Torres barked, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "This is an accident, not an attack." Her words did little to calm the situation. Crew members instinctively reached for their sidearms, unsure whether the Vailith intended to retaliate. For a moment, it seemed as though the fragile bond between the two species might shatter completely. Then, out of nowhere, Zirin stepped forward, or rather, flowed forward, its fluid body undulating gracefully. Its colors shifted rapidly, cycling through calming shades of lavender and turquoise. It positioned itself between the humans and the rest of the Vailith delegation, emitting a steady pulse of light that seemed to soothe its companions. "They're not attacking," Dr. Quinn realized aloud, her eyes widening. "Zirin's trying to explain that." Sure enough, the Vailith began to settle. Their aggressive postures relaxed, and their colors returned to softer tones. Whatever Zirin had communicated, it worked. Gradually, the tension in the room dissipated. Once order was restored, Marcus approached the delegation, his expression apologetic. "That was never meant to happen," he said, speaking slowly and deliberately. "Please believe me, we value your safety above all else." Though the Vailith couldn't understand his words, their response was clear. One of them extended a glowing appendage toward Marcus, touching his shoulder briefly before withdrawing. It was a gesture of forgiveness, or perhaps understanding. Back in the conference room, later that evening, the mood was somber. Captain Torres addressed the entire crew, her tone grave. "Today proved how easily misunderstandings can spiral out of control. We must be vigilant moving forward. Every action we take, every decision we make, has consequences." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. He glanced at Dr. Quinn, who looked equally troubled. They had come so far, yet one misstep could undo everything. As the meeting concluded, Cole lingered behind, his earlier hostility replaced by quiet reflection. "I still don't fully trust them," he admitted gruffly. "But I won't stand in the way if you think this is worth pursuing." It wasn't exactly an endorsement, but Marcus accepted it as progress. Trust would take time, for both humans and Vailith. For now, they had survived their first real crisis, and sometimes survival was enough. In the days that followed the gravity simulator incident, tensions aboard the Elysium remained high. The human crew was divided. Some believed the Vailith's reaction had been justified given the circumstances, while others saw it as proof of their unpredictable nature. Marcus Hale found himself caught in the middle, working tirelessly to reassure both sides and prevent further misunderstandings. He knew that rebuilding trust would require more than apologies. It needed action. Determined to bridge the gap, Marcus proposed an idea during a strategy meeting with Captain Alina Torres and Dr. Lila Quinn. "What if we host a cultural exchange event?" he suggested. "Something informal where humans and Vailith can interact without pressure. It could help us connect on a deeper level." Captain Torres raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a party?" Marcus hesitated, unsure how to phrase it diplomatically. "Not exactly a party, but close. Think of it as a celebration of diversity. We'll share food, music, art, anything that represents who we are. And maybe they'll do the same." Dr. Quinn nodded thoughtfully. "It's worth a try. If nothing else, it'll give us a chance to observe their behavior in a relaxed setting. Plus, Zyron seemed genuinely interested in our customs during the last interaction." With the captain's approval, plans for the event began immediately. The crew transformed one of the ship's larger chambers into a vibrant space filled with Earth's finest offerings. Holographic displays showcased famous landmarks, traditional dances, and iconic works of art. Tables were laden with delicacies from around the globe, though many dishes had been adapted to avoid ingredients that might harm the bioluminescent aliens. A string quartet played classical music, while another corner featured a karaoke machine set up by enthusiastic crew members. When the Vailith delegation arrived, they paused at the entrance, their crystalline adornments glowing softly as they took in the scene. Zyron led the group, its colors shifting into bright, cheerful hues that suggested excitement. Encouraged by this positive response, Marcus stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome," he said warmly, bowing slightly. "This is our way of sharing a piece of ourselves with you." The Vailith responded with a symphony of lights and hums, their version of gratitude. One by one, they'd ventured into the room, curiosity guiding their movements. Zyron wasted no time exploring the various stations, pausing first at the holographic displays. Its appendages traced the projected images of Earth's oceans, mountains, and cities, eliciting bursts of shimmering light that drew smiles from nearby crew members. Meanwhile, other members of the delegation gravitated toward the food tables. Concerned about potential allergic reactions, Dr. Quinn hovered nearby, ready to intervene if needed. To everyone's relief, the Vailith appeared fascinated rather than repelled by the array of dishes. They didn't eat in the traditional sense, but instead absorbed energy through their crystalline structures. When presented with a plate of specially prepared fruit slices infused with bioluminescent algae, they emitted approving flashes of color. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere grew increasingly lively. Crew members joined the Vailith in impromptu activities, from painting murals together to attempting, and hilariously failing, to teach them how to sing karaoke. Zyron proved particularly adept at mimicking human gestures, even managing to hold a microphone, albeit awkwardly, while swaying to the rhythm of a pop song. But the highlight of the night came when the Vailith decided to reciprocate. Gathering in the center of the room, they performed a synchronized display of light and sound unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Their bodies pulsed in perfect harmony, creating intricate patterns that danced across the walls and ceiling. The performance conveyed emotions and stories far beyond what words could express, leaving the entire crew awestruck. During the spectacle, Marcus noticed something remarkable. Zyron had begun incorporating elements of human fashion into its appearance, draping scarves and sashes over its fluid form in creative ways. It turned to Marcus, its colors shifting into playful shades of pink and yellow, as if seeking approval. "You look incredible," Marcus said, grinning. Inspired by Zyron's gesture, he made a bold decision. Turning to Dr. Quinn, he whispered, "Do you think they'd let me try something similar, like temporary bioluminescent tattoos?" Dr. Quinn blinked in surprise but quickly recovered. "It's risky, but if done carefully, it could send a powerful message. Let me ask Zyron." After consulting briefly with the alien, Quinn returned with an affirmative nod. Using a safe, non-invasive device provided by the Valeth. She applied glowing designs to Marcus's arms and chest. When he stepped back into view, the effect was stunning. His skin shimmered with swirling patterns that mirrored those of the Valeth, blending human and alien aesthetics seamlessly. The gesture resonated deeply with the delegation. Several Valeth approached Marcus, their colors softening into warm tones of acceptance and camaraderie. Even Chief Engineer Ryland Cole, who had remained skeptical throughout the mission, admitted later that the sight gave him pause. Maybe there's hope for this alliance after all, he muttered under his breath. As the event drew to a close, Zirin lingered behind, exchanging final goodbyes with Marcus. Before departing, it touched its glowing appendage to his hand, leaving behind a faint residue of light, a symbolic reminder of their shared journey. Back in his quarters that night, Marcus stared at the fading patterns on his skin, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time, he truly believed that humanity and the Valeth could overcome their differences, not by erasing them, but by embracing them. The cultural exchange event had been a resounding success, leaving both humans and Valeth with a newfound appreciation for each other's differences. But as the initial excitement began to fade, Marcus Hale couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more beneath the surface. Something unspoken, something hidden. The Valeth were fascinating, yes, but they also remained enigmatic. Their colors told stories, their vibrations conveyed emotions, yet their true motivations remained unclear. It wasn't until Zirin approached Marcus privately one evening that the first crack in the facade appeared. The alien floated silently into the observation deck, its crystalline adornments glowing faintly against the backdrop of stars. Without hesitation, it extended an appendage toward Marcus, inviting him to follow. Intrigued and slightly nervous, Marcus obliged, signaling Dr. Leela Quinn to accompany them as a precaution. Zirin led them to a secluded corner of the ship where holographic projectors could display images without interruption. Once there, it began emitting a series of rapid color shifts, accompanied by low-pitched hums. Dr. Quinn quickly activated her translation device, which she had been refining since their arrival. After a few moments of processing, the device translated fragments of what Zirin was attempting to communicate. "They're talking about their homeworld," Quinn whispered, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Something's wrong. Very wrong." Marcus leaned closer, his heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Quinn hesitated before continuing. "From what I can gather, their planet is facing severe environmental degradation. Overuse of crystalline resources has destabilized their ecosystems, and their society is struggling to adapt." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Crystals weren't just decorative or sensory organs for the Valeth. They powered their technology, sustained their way of life, and were integral to their survival. If their supply was dwindling, it explained why they had agreed to meet humanity in the first place. Perhaps they saw Earth not only as potential allies but also as competitors, or worse, exploiters. "Ask if this is why they came here," Marcus urged quietly. "Are they worried we'll take their resources?" Quinn adjusted the settings on her device and relayed the question. Zirin's response was immediate, a cascade of deep red and black hues, indicating distress. It projected a hologram of its homeworld, a breathtaking expanse of shimmering landscapes, now marred by barren patches and crumbling structures. Then, it overlaid another image, Earth, teeming with life and vibrant ecosystems. "They're comparing our planets," Quinn murmured. "They see us as sustainable, maybe even enviable." Marcus felt a surge of conflicting emotions. On one hand, he admired the Valeth's honesty. On the other, he feared the implications. Humanity's own history was riddled with resource exploitation and ecological disasters. What guarantee did they have that humans wouldn't repeat those mistakes, especially when faced with advanced alien materials? Before Marcus could respond, Zirin emitted a softer sequence of colors, shifting to calming blues and greens. It touched its crystalline structures gently, then pointed to Quinn's device. Through fragmented translations, they pieced together another revelation. The Valith wanted to share classified knowledge about sustainable resource management. They believed humanity could learn from their failures and avoid making the same catastrophic errors. But there was a catch. In return, they expected full transparency from Earth. Every detail about human resource consumption, technological advancements, and environmental challenges would need to be disclosed. No secrets, no omissions. "This changes everything," Marcus said softly, turning to Quinn. "If we agree, we're exposing ourselves completely. Our strengths, our weaknesses, it'll all be laid bare." "And if we don't," Quinn countered, "we risk losing their trust entirely. Not to mention, their offer could save us decades of trial and error in developing eco-friendly tech." The weight of the decision pressed heavily on Marcus's shoulders. He knew he couldn't make such a choice alone. Summoning Captain Elena Torres and Chief Engineer Ryland Cole, he convened an emergency meeting to discuss the proposal. The debate was heated. Cole argued vehemently against sharing sensitive information, citing security risks. "We don't know what they'll do with that data," he insisted. "For all we know, this whole thing could be a setup." Torres, however, took a more pragmatic stance. "We've already committed to transparency as part of this mission. If we back out now, we'll look dishonest and desperate." As the argument swirled around him, Marcus noticed Zirin waiting patiently outside the conference room, its colors flickering anxiously. The alien's presence reminded him of the stakes, not just for humanity, but for the Valith as well. Their world was dying, and they were reaching out for help. Could humanity afford to turn them away? Finally, Marcus stood, silencing the room. "This isn't just about us," he said firmly. "It's about two species finding a way to coexist. If we reject their offer, we're saying we're not ready to step up. And maybe we aren't, but I refuse to let fear dictate our future." With that, he made his decision. Humanity would accept the Valith's terms, opening up every aspect of their operations in exchange for their shared knowledge. It was a leap of faith, one that required vulnerability and trust. When Marcus delivered the news to Zirin, the alien's colors exploded into radiant shades of gold and turquoise, signaling gratitude and hope. For the first time, Marcus allowed himself to believe that this partnership might lead to something extraordinary. But as he watched Zirin glide away, he couldn't ignore the lingering unease in the pit of his stomach. Trust was fragile, and the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Still, he reminded himself of a simple truth. Sometimes progress required taking risks, even when the outcome was unknown. The decision to share humanity's secrets with the Valith was met with mixed reactions aboard the Elysium. While some crew members admired Marcus Hale's boldness, others viewed it as reckless. Chief Engineer Ryland Cole remained particularly vocal in his disapproval, pacing the corridors and muttering about betraying Earth's trust. Despite the skepticism, preparations for the data exchange moved forward under tight security protocols. Every piece of information, ranging from Earth's ecological challenges to its technological advancements, was carefully curated and encrypted before being handed over. Dr. Leela Quinn worked tirelessly alongside the Valith delegation, ensuring that both sides adhered to the agreed terms. Zirin, ever the curious ambassador, took an active role in facilitating the process. Its crystalline adornments pulsed steadily as it reviewed human data, occasionally emitting bursts of light that seemed to convey approval or concern. The collaboration felt like a delicate dance, each step calculated to maintain balance between transparency and caution. But not everyone on board shared this sense of cooperation. Rumors began circulating among the crew about suspicious activities within the ship. Tools went missing from engineering bays, access logs showed unauthorized entries, and faint traces of foreign energy signatures were detected near restricted areas. At first, these incidents were dismissed as minor glitches or paranoia fueled by stress. However, when a covert surveillance drone captured footage of a shadowy figure tampering with one of the Valith's communication devices, alarm bells rang loud and clear. Marcus called an emergency meeting to address the growing unease. "We have a saboteur on board," he announced grimly, projecting the grainy video onto the conference room screen. "Whoever they are, they're targeting the Valeth and risking everything we've built." Captain Alina Torres slammed her fist on the table. "This is unacceptable. If word gets out that humans betrayed them after agreeing to full disclosure, it'll destroy any chance of peace." "But who would do this?" Quinn asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "And why?" Cole hesitated before speaking up. "It might be someone working for outside interests. Corporate factions back on Earth would kill for access to Valeth tech. Maybe they planted someone here to steal intel." Marcus nodded grimly. "If that's true, then we're dealing with more than just internal dissent. This could escalate into an interstellar incident." Determined to protect the fragile alliance, Marcus ordered increased patrols and stricter monitoring of all systems. He also tasked Dr. Quinn with keeping a closer eye on the Valeth delegation, ensuring their safety while maintaining open lines of communication. Meanwhile, Captain Torres launched an investigation to identify the saboteur, vowing to root out the traitor no matter the cost. Amidst the chaos, Zarin approached Marcus privately. Its colors shifted rapidly, conveying urgency. Through fragmented translations, Quinn deciphered its message. The Valeth had intercepted communications suggesting rogue elements intended to seize samples of their crystalline technology by force. They believed these materials could grant humanity unprecedented advantages, but at great risk to both species. "We can't let this happen," Marcus said firmly, turning to Quinn. "If those crystals fall into the wrong hands, it won't just destabilize the Valeth. It could endanger Earth too." Quinn nodded, her expression grave. "Agreed. But how do we stop them without causing panic?" Zarin offered a solution. Using its own bioluminescent patterns, it signaled a plan. The coordinated effort between humans and Valeth to intercept the saboteurs before they could act. It proposed using holographic decoys to lure the infiltrators into a trap where they could be apprehended without violence. Though risky, Marcus saw no other option. "Let's do it," he said decisively. "But we move quickly and quietly." The operation unfolded late that night. Crew members loyal to Marcus spread across key locations, setting up holographic projections designed to mimic valuable Valeth artifacts. Meanwhile, Zarin and several members of its delegation concealed themselves nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. Tension crackled through the air as everyone waited for the saboteurs to take the bait. Finally, movement was detected. 3 figures clad in stealth suits crept into the designated area, their movements cautious but deliberate. As they reached for the decoy crystals, alarms blared, flooding the room with light. Before the intruders could react, Marcus and his team surrounded them, weapons drawn. "Stand down," Marcus commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You're under arrest." One of the saboteurs, a man whose face was obscured by a mask, laughed bitterly. "You think stopping us will make a difference? There are others waiting in the wings. Humanity always takes what it wants." Before Marcus could respond, Zarin stepped forward, its colors blazing with authority. In a display of unity, it extended an appendage toward the captured saboteurs, signaling that justice would prevail, not through aggression, but through accountability. With the immediate threat neutralized, Marcus turned his attention to damage control. Though the saboteurs' actions threatened to strain relations, Zarin assured him that the Valeth delegation understood the complexities of human nature. They recognized that not all humans shared the same values, and that true progress required patience and perseverance. As dawn broke over the Elysium, Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the stars stretch endlessly beyond the viewport. The mission had been fraught with challenges, yet it had also revealed glimpses of hope. By taking a leap of faith, humanity had proven it was capable of rising above fear and greed, even if only for a moment. As the Elysium prepared for its departure, a palpable sense of accomplishment and relief settled over the crew. The saboteurs had been detained and their connections to corporate factions back on Earth exposed. While the revelation was unsettling, it also served as a wake-up call for humanity. Progress required vigilance, not just goodwill. Marcus Hale stood at the helm of the ship's bridge, staring out at the swirling stars beyond the viewport. He felt a mixture of pride and humility, knowing that this mission had pushed humanity closer to understanding what it truly meant to coexist with another species. The Violet delegation lingered briefly before returning to their vessel, their crystalline adornments glowing softly in farewell. Zirin paused at the airlock, its color shifting into warm hues of gratitude and friendship. It extended an appendage toward Marcus one last time, leaving behind a small, shimmering crystal embedded with swirling patterns of light. Dr. Layla Quinn explained that the gift symbolized their shared journey, a token of hope and unity. "Take care of it," she said, smiling gently as Marcus cradled the delicate object in his hands. "It's more than just a keepsake. It represents trust." Captain Alina Torres joined them, her usual stern demeanor softened by the weight of what they'd achieved. "This isn't the end," she said firmly. "It's only the beginning. We've opened a door. We can't let it close." Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle deep within him. The alliance between humans and Valeth was fragile but promising. Both species had taken monumental risks, shedding preconceived notions and embracing vulnerability. Now it was up to humanity to honor that trust, not just with the Valeth but with themselves. Back on Earth, news of the mission spread like wildfire. Governments, scientists, and citizens alike debated the implications of first contact. Some celebrated the breakthrough, hailing it as proof that cooperation across species was possible. Others expressed fear, questioning whether humanity was ready for such responsibility. Amidst the chaos, Marcus became a reluctant figurehead, tasked with advocating for transparency and ethical collaboration. He spoke at conferences, gave interviews, and worked tirelessly to ensure that the lessons learned aboard the Elysium weren't forgotten. One of the most significant outcomes of the mission was the joint initiative proposed by the Valeth, a collaborative effort to develop sustainable technologies benefiting both species. Humanity gained access to advanced knowledge about resource management, while the Valeth received assurances that Earth would prioritize ecological preservation moving forward. Together, they established research hubs where scientists from both worlds could work side by side, combining their strengths to tackle shared challenges. To solidify this partnership, the Valeth offered a permanent ambassador to reside aboard future human starships. In return, Earth agreed to host a Valeth cultural exchange program, allowing their representatives to experience life on the planet firsthand. These gestures were symbolic yet profound, signaling a commitment to mutual growth and understanding. For Marcus, the mission left an indelible mark. He often found himself reflecting on the moments that had defined their journey, the awkward first impressions, the near disasters, and the quiet victories. Each step had taught him something new about diplomacy, empathy, and the resilience of the human spirit. But perhaps the greatest lesson came from Zirin. Sometimes, breaking barriers required stepping outside your comfort zone and embracing differences rather than fearing them. On the final day of their voyage, as the Elysium warped through space en route to Earth, Marcus gathered the crew in the observation deck. They stood together, gazing out at the infinite expanse of stars stretching endlessly before them. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was filled with unspoken gratitude for the risks they'd taken, the bonds they'd forged, and the legacy they hoped to leave behind. "I want to thank all of you," Marcus said finally, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "This wasn't easy. There were times when I doubted we'd pull through. But because of your courage, creativity, and determination, we didn't just survive. We thrived." His words hung in the air, resonating deeply with everyone present. Even Chief Engineer Ryland Cole, who had once been skeptical of the mission, nodded solemnly. "We did good," he admitted gruffly. "Maybe better than anyone expected." As the ship continued its journey home, Marcus returned to his quarters, holding the crystal gifted by Zirin. Its light pulsed softly, casting prismatic reflections across the walls. He smiled, remembering the aliens' playful experiments with human fashion and the profound connection they'd shared despite their differences. In that moment, Marcus realized that true communication transcended language, appearances, and even biology. It was about finding common ground, not by erasing individuality, but by celebrating it. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges, he believed humanity and the Valeth had taken the first steps towards something extraordinary. Far away, in the depths of space, the Valeth ambassador watched the Elysium disappear into the void. Its colors shifted into radiant shades of gold and turquoise, conveying optimism and resolve. The galaxy stretched vast and mysterious before them, full of untold possibilities. Together, two species had dared to reach across the stars, and in doing so, had begun to rewrite the rules of existence itself.